Welcome back to the shop, everybody. I'm Chad. This is Carter Engineering and Fabrication, bringing you back every week for whatever shenanigans I get into. This week, super excited to share with you getting the 1970 Buick Skylark body sat down on the 2006 Lincoln Town Car chassis that's been shortened, narrowed. The rear end has been narrowed as well, in addition to that, and then the 19-inch steel wheels that have been widened with new tires all the way around. So, a lot of words to say that we're making a pretty cool car that I'm excited to. Let's go look at it, and it'll be fun. So let's see the process. So jumping in straight from last week, going to be narrowing the Crown Vic rear axle just for the sake of a mock-up. It's got 28 spline axles. I'm not going to use any of the actual components from it. So all I did was cut the housing down and quickly weld it back together. Here you see me stuffing it back under the frame. So the axles were just cut in the middle. I kept the splines in the C-clip portion and just TIG welded them quickly in a shortened state. Similar thing with the overall width. I didn't use a lineup fixture or anything. Again, I'm not going to end up long-term reusing any of the rear axle aside from maybe the center, the casting. But just for the sake of mock-up, I'm putting some of the fasteners back in, getting the control arms put back together, just trying to get it brought down to a reasonable width, and then we'll stuff it under the body and then start doing some measurements. I've got some ideas of what I'd like to do for axles, whether it's Explorer 31 spline, factory stuff like I've talked about, or something maybe a touch more elaborate. But for this discussion, this rear end is purely mock-up, and you'll see that with some of the shortcuts I take in just a moment. But pounding in some of the hardware, I didn't realize that some of the captured nuts were still in place, but getting the 4-link put back together and basically getting it ready to move over into the lift bay and set the body down on it. So getting it jockeyed in place. In a moment you'll see me grab the lower control arm. I lost one of the rubber bushings in the disassembly process. It's thankfully, yep, that one. I ended up 3D printing just a plastic slug to go in there, measured the taper top and bottom, and it's close enough for what we're doing here. So here we are throwing on the late model Ford Explorer rotors. I chose those specifically for a couple reasons. One, I want to use the Explorer calipers. They have an electric parking brake actuator. They're pretty inexpensive. I actually ordered one off eBay at Takeoff just to do some test fits, but it gets you a pretty good size brake rotor. Like I think it's 12 inches and change, and really liking the electric parking brake actuator concept. I did it with the Tesla units on a Camaro rear axle. I haven't got to see that in action yet, but I'm pretty confident it's going to work fine. So here I see that I think I made an error, and I did. Actually, I made a pretty big error. So when I narrowed the rear axle, I narrowed the brackets to match the frame, which was fine. That part was good, but I forgot to narrow the outside portion, the additional amount, to get it to the quote-unquote Explorer width. So here I am, basically getting ready to take it back apart and figuring out what I want to do to just mock it up quickly. So rotors off, wheels off, and in a moment I'll pull the axles back out as well. What I really don't want to mess with is cutting the housing ends and shortening them. So around this time I had the idea that maybe I'll just 3D print some like bushing inserts to go into the axle tubes, and then I don't have to worry so much about refitting anything. So I'm going to get the bandsaw in a second, cut the housing ends off. Those are going to scrap bin. Again, not going to be reused. A couple quick measurements, ID, OD. The axle diameter, and then I can 3D print some pucks. None of this is going to be load bearing in the sense that it will more than adequately carry the body around. Um, so in a second, you'll see me bring out a notepad and some calipers and just a couple quick measurements. There is a weld bead on the inside of the tube, so I added a flat spot for that. I'll show a screenshot in just a second of the CAD model in bamboo slicer, just again a flange bushing with a flat spot in it. These work really well, honestly. So in that same vein, I'm back in the dirty room, cutting the axles down again. Pretty easy fix to, I skipped this the first time around, but basically just diagram or angle grind the axles in half, and then just a quick TIG weld to put them back together. I just wanted to keep the C-clip feature to locate the width of the axle. So quick bevel, and trying to buff off most of the any coating that the axles had on them and the buildup of oil. But quick TIG weld around the perimeter. This worked fine, no issue. I'm not concerned about alignment or anything. This, again, just pure mock-up stuff. So we're back in the shop. You can see the pucks that were pressed into the rear of the axle. They're the only part that's not rust color, so easy enough to spot those. Axles going in, they fit fine. I could have extended the 3D printed part a little bit further to catch the bearing surface, but again, not critical. Could probably speed this up a little bit. I might trim some of this out, but ultimately just getting the center cross pin back in, and I left some of the spider gears out. Again, just putting in the bare minimum of what's needed to make it roll as a chassis. It's funny sidebar, I left the video out, but I pulled it off the table and set it down pretty aggressively and ended up breaking some of the welds, and I had to go back and redo it. So it's what I get for cutting the corners on this step of the process and trying to rush it just because I'm excited to get it under the body and see what it's going to look like. I know what it's going to look like. I've seen the mock-ups, but really to see how the body interfaces with the frame, and I am so excited for how these 305s are turning out on the widened steel wheels. Just such a meaty, just beefcake look going on back here. I took basically another 1.5 inches from the earlier mock-up. I skipped a lot of the errors in my unloading of the frame off the chassis table. Just a little irritated on the chain of events that occurred, but now we're back into the lift bay and basically just rolling the thing under the body, and let's see what it's going to look like. So I took a little shop Tetris to get the body into the lift bay, and it's kind of precarious because the way the lift arms have to be positioned, but the body weighs so little relative to the lift capacity that I wasn't concerned, and it lifted fine. The frame's light enough at this point you can jockey it left to right to get it roughly aligned. I'm closing the garage door here just to get the lighting to be a little more consistent. But quick eyeball on everything. It's not fitting well. it's kind of as expected. There's a lot of things that are hitting, and it's going to take a lot of work to get it to come together well. Yeah. So after I've analyzed it, here I am bringing it back down. The picture that you see there is the frame contacting the body at the front cab mounts or body mounts. The issue though is that the body is basically touching the frame, no rubber isolators or anything, but there's so much frame showing underneath. So it's going to take a lot of cutting to get the body down on the frame. You know, you've got, compared to my cut list, you've got another 3 inches of frame height showing. So it's going to be a good bit of work to get this thing to mate together correctly. And in here you can see how much frame rail is showing under the black stripe, the old rust covering stripe the previous owner did. Throwing a fender on just to see. I know I don't have the body positioned well. Definitely needs to be moved rearward, probably a little over an inch, maybe an inch and a half. Not a big deal for the sake of discussion today. But most of it's fitting pretty well, but I think I need to cut a lot of the floor pans out and the quarter panels and dial this in more. So at this point, this is just me getting some natural light on it. I'm going to open the trunk and doors in a moment and just kind of assessing whether this is still a good plan after all the effort it's taken to get to this point. And I'm feeling a bit of a mixture of in awe how cool I think it's going to look, as much as it's a complete shit box. The 305s, the widened steel wheels, it's going to be pretty neat looking. Definitely need to get the body alignment dialed in more. And I think as I cut the floor pans out and get that body brought down, then I can raise the suspension up and maintain this kind of visual ride height. But there's a lot of things to work through in terms of front suspension geometry. There's tie rods hitting the center cross member, so lots to do still. So that was quite a week. Really excited to see the body back on the frame. Definitely seeing a lot of the challenges that I have ahead of me in terms of figuring out body to frame mounting. Maybe it makes more sense to just weld the thing together solid and make it a unibody at that point. I'm not sure. Lots of clearance issues, lots of places where it needs work, and also I'm running into a lot of difficulty lowering the front suspension as much as I would like. Definitely, I think some noticeable like bump steer issues when you're lowered that far. I've done a little bit of searching, and people in the Crown Vic community or the lowered F100s, the common swaps for that front suspension type, definitely run into tie rod clearance, especially when turned one way or the other. When you're angled straight, you're okay, but as soon as you turn it, you run into tie rod clearance, inner tie rod clearance to the cross members. So some things I got to work through there to figure out what makes sense. Maybe Z-ing the front frame and raising the whole center to get the, I want a very, very low ride height. So that's lots of details to work through. I'm not backburnering the car by any means, but I have customer work that's going to take precedent for a while, and then 20 feet away from this car that's an excellent winter project, I have another car that's begging to be put together over a long weekend and driven. So yeah, if you liked some of this, specifically my therapy session with my 70 Cutlass, the weather was too nice to not fire it up and take it for a run around the block. So all told, great week, very motivated, a little overwhelmed by the amount of work ahead of me, but let's eat the elephant one bite at a time, and I'll keep sharing the process. So if you made it this far, you're one of like 30% according to the analytics, so thank you, and I'll see you guys next week. I'm out.